He's back. Yes, folks, the news is that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, may be the next Secretary of Defense if Donald Trump can get rid of his current Secretary of Defense. All right, let's talk about it. So, where are we? Sorry, my collar is doing something weird. Where are we? Here's where we are. Pete Hegseth is Donald Trump's nominee to be the Secretary of Defense. You probably know that since you follow these things closely. Hegseth has been the subject of a series of revelations via the media that started with a 2017 alleged sexual assault, a 2020 payment to the woman who alleged him of sexual assault, although I will note not an admission of guilt by Hegseth, who denies he did anything wrong, has subsequently led to a New York Times story in which an email was posted about Hegseth from his mom that was unflattering, a New Yorker story about allegations of drinking and poor sexual language related to colleagues at these nonprofits Hegseth worked for, and to an NBC News story that said that Fox employees had seen Hegseth drunk a number of times and smelled alcohol in his breath and that sort of thing. Okay. So what we now know, and we sort of knew this before, but Hegseth is on the verge of not making it. So he said that he spoke to Donald Trump on Wednesday, that he's going to keep fighting, that Donald Trump wants him to keep fighting. I mean, I always say, yeah, you keep fighting right until they tell you you're done. So, I mean, what's he going to say? Like, yeah, we're going to give up. So I get what Hegseth is doing here, but it feels to me like this, we kind of know how this story ends, right? Trump doesn't like bad publicity. That's not directly tied to him. He doesn't like other people getting bad publicity for him. I think Trump, as it relates to alcoholism, is very, or alcohol issues, is very sensitive because of his older brother's well-documented issues with alcohol. So I think that's a no-no for Trump. And I just think that Hegseth, I guess I'd be very surprised if he survived. Now, that brings us to Ron DeSantis, which is an amazing storyline. So, according to the Wall Street Journal and then confirmed by lots of other people, Trump and DeSantis have talked in recent days about DeSantis serving as Secretary of Defense. Now, DeSantis is a Navy veteran, got an amazing resume, but you might remember the 2024 Republican primary campaign where Donald Trump literally took it as his main mission to destroy Ron DeSantis at every turn. And by the way, it worked. There was incredible bitterness there on both sides. You know, I know DeSantis eventually endorsed Trump and all that sort of stuff, but man, it was ugly. And yet, here we are. DeSantis apparently would be the front runner to be the next nominee if and when Pete Hegseth, I think it's more of an when than an if, but when that happens, when Pete Hegseth drops. There's so many things going on here. So why would DeSantis do it? Well, he's term limited out as governor in 2026. So he's kind of looking at the end, right? He can't serve another term. So he's got to figure out something to do after that. So he's got about a year and a half left on his term, a little longer, 2 years left on his term. So he's looking for his next thing. The Senate has Republican. It's unlikely he's going to primary either of them, and I don't think either of them are going to leave. Rubio is obviously leaving, but DeSantis is going to appoint someone to that role, and that person probably won't leave. So that way is blocked. I think he'd like to be the president. I think he'd certainly like to run again. And I guess he looks at this and says, well, if I'm the Secretary of Defense, that's a really serious, prominent role. It's a national role as opposed to a Florida role. Bulks up my sort of like national security, military bona fides. That can't hurt in a Republican primary. I think that's probably all true. I mean, to me, the counter to that is Donald Trump is the president. And past Secretary of Defenses, I'm thinking of Jim Mattis, Donald Trump's first Secretary of Defense, it hasn't worked out that well for them because Trump wants you to Trump thinks he's the best general, the best military strategist in the country, maybe in the world. And he wants you to do what he wants to do, not what you want to do, or what your generals tell you should do. So it's always fraught with Trump. It's like, yeah, Secretary of Defense is a really powerful position, but, given that it's Trump, you may not have that job for as long as you think you might have it, and it might end poorly, probably will end poorly, and then that hurts your chances of getting what you want, which if you're Ron DeSantis is being able to run for president again, right? That said, I think he would take it if it was offered. Now, there's another wrinkle here, which is utterly fascinating. So I mentioned that Ron DeSantis has the power as the governor to appoint the next senator from Florida because we assume Marco Rubio, one of the two current senators from Florida, is going to be confirmed as Secretary of State. It seems like that one is on a glide path. One of the names being mentioned as a possible appointee is Lara Trump. Lara Trump is married to Eric Trump, one of Donald Trump's sons, and has expressed interest in it because they now live in Florida, even though she's from North Carolina, and she thought about running for the Senate in North Carolina in 2022. So is there a deal to be made here? Ron DeSantis is the Secretary of Defense, and Lara Trump is appointed to the Florida Senate, or the U.S. Senate from Florida. I think that's a possibility. The horse trading happens. I think a lot of Democrats would be outraged that it looks like a quid pro quo. Might be a quid pro quo. Not sure voters care. Again, Secretary of Defense is not a position you vote on, so it doesn't really matter. All DeSantis would have to do is make sure 50 Republican senators were going to vote to confirm him. And Lara Trump wouldn't be up in front of voters for 2 years, at which point she'd be running in a state that Donald Trump won by 13 points. You know, and with that golden last name in the Republican Party, Trump, and Donald Trump would check a box to sort of extend his political legacy and his dynasty, which I think he is absolutely interested in doing, which is why I made that video about Don Jr. and what he might run for down the line. So there's a lot going on here. The last piece I'll note as it relates to picking DeSantis, because you might think like, I thought Donald Trump hated Ron DeSantis. Remember this about Donald Trump. I think this is critically important to remember. Donald Trump is at root a reality TV star and TV executive producer. That's his formative experience. I know he's a businessman, salesman, marketer, and I think those things matter too. But the thing he did most recently before running for president really was to be a reality TV star and the executive producer of a reality TV show. And you know what reality TV loves? Redemption arcs. Two people fighting at war. They can't stand one another. And then they come back around to work together, or maybe even love each other. Okay, that's reality TV, but you get my point. This is how Trump views the world. This is the lens he sees in the world. He loves a second chance. He loves a comeback. He loves a redemption arc. All of those things fit into his world. And I think he would love to see, Ron hated me once, but look, I'm the bigger guy. We now made up, and now he's the Secretary of Defense. I could totally see that storyline appealing to Donald Trump. So a lot of moving parts. There's political, there's policy, there's personal, so many moving parts here. Fascinating story. In short, Hegseth, I think, very thin ice. If he was able to survive this week, he might make it. I don't think he'll wind up surviving this week as the nominee. We'll see. DeSantis stepping in, fascinating on a zillion levels, and totally Trumpy if it comes to pass. Okay, as always, 4 things. 1, subscribe to my channel. Easy. 2, like this video. 3, comment on this video. Do it for the algorithm. And 4, tell 10 friends. All right, everybody. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Be well.